Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using some of the beautiful paper and cardstock included in Your Paper Insider's Box 10. Your Paper Insider offers a quarterly subscription box, and this is what you'll currently receive if you subscribe now. It's Box 10. If there are boxes left over after the previous quarter, so right now Box 9, you can purchase them individually, although you'll save money if you subscribe. If you're interested, I do have links in the description box below. And I also have a video showing all of the papers included in Box 10. My cards today feature paper and cardstock from Box 10 and also one sheet of cardstock from Box 9. The assortment of paper and cardstock in the boxes is amazing. There's some solid cardstock, lots of specialty, some handmade looking paper. It really is fun to use for your cards and projects. One of the papers I'll be using for my first card is called White Hemp Flower Rayon. This is very thin. You can see how translucent it is, but I thought it would add some lovely texture detail to the background of my card. I cut down the piece to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and I will warn you this is delicate paper, so be careful when you're cutting it. I used my paper trimmer and didn't have any problems. If you're using a trimmer, just make sure your blade is nice and sharp. I want to add just a little bit of splatter. I'm using a silver gold watercolor. I'll gently tap my paintbrush over it. Most of this will be covered up, so I'm really focused on the upper left-hand corner and the right-hand side. I'll be adding lots of beautiful flowers on this paper. Many of the colors in Box 10 have a tropical look, so I thought it would be fun to make some tropical flowers. I'm using 2 die sets from Jaded Blossom. They're tropical flowers and also they're flower dies. I've already gone ahead and die cut out all of the pieces, and every piece of paper and cardstock I use for the flowers is included in Box 10. I love the vibrant colors. That pink is just gorgeous. For the ferns, I used some vellum, and for the middle layer of the larger orange flower, this is also a colored vellum. I'm adding 2 orange flowers, a large one and a small one. Since I did use vellum for the middle layer of the larger orange flower, I made sure to only add glue in the center. That way it doesn't show through. I'm adding 1 small pink flower, and I used the hot pink non-shed glitter cardstock. I love this bright pink cardstock, and I thought it would be perfect for a hibiscus flower. The center of the hibiscus flower, I used some yellow cardstock that has a glossy finish. And 1 final flower to assemble, 1 more hibiscus, since I love this pink color. I'll be adding several palm leaves and also fern branches. So there are all of the flowers assembled. And to make sure I don't lose them, I have them stored in the small stack and sort tray from scrapbook.com. So here's the background piece with that silver watercolor splatter. You can see it adds a very subtle detail. Because this is very thin paper, I don't want to use my ATG. I'm afraid I might accidentally tear the paper. To adhere it on some white cardstock, I'll add Barely Art glue in the center of the flower images. That way it won't show through. I am adhering it on white cardstock so you won't see that lovely floral design, but it still adds some beautiful detail on the background. I really want the flowers to pop against this lovely white. And I only used 1/4 of the sheet, so I'll be able to make more cards, find other ways to make that floral design show. When the light hits it just right, you can see some of that lovely silver watercolor splatter. So now it's time to add all the beautiful flowers. And I will be popping up the flowers using foam dimension. I have scrapbook.com's large foam squares in their 1 millimeter thickness. For most of them, I can fit a large square behind it, but the small pink glittery flower, I will need to cut one of the squares in half. When creating floral scenes, I like to add the flowers down first, then I'll tuck the leaves underneath. I'm putting 2 large flowers in the lower left-hand corner, the orange first and then the pink. Now I'll add the small pink glittery flower. Trying to decide if I want it in front or behind the 2 larger flowers. Before adding all of the flowers in the upper right-hand corner, I'll tuck in some of the ferns and leaves. For the fern branches, I use green vellum, and the palm leaves, I use a green shimmer cardstock. I'll add 1 of each above the orange flower. I'm not adding glue at the very end of the branches or leaves. That way I can curl up the end to give more of a dimensional look. Next, I'll add a leaf and a branch underneath the pink glittery flower. If the leaves and branches are too long to fit underneath the flowers, since I don't want them hanging off the edge of the card, at least not very much, I'll either cut off the end with a pair of scissors or tear it with my fingers. And no one will see that cut or torn edge since it will be tucked underneath the flowers. Now I'll move over to the large pink hibiscus flower, adding 1 of the palm leaves and also a fern branch. I noticed the ends of the fern branches were curling up, so I will go back and add a little more glue underneath the very center. And I think because these pieces are adhered on white, the glue isn't very visible through the vellum. Now I'll add the final 2 flowers in the upper right-hand corner, putting the hibiscus one on the left side of the small orange flower. And I'll tuck in 2 of the leaves and 1 of the fern branches. The final leaf I'll need to trim off quite a bit to sneak underneath the orange flower. The leaf was still just a tiny bit too long, so I'll trim off a bit more. Put barely art glue on the back and tuck it in underneath the orange flower. Since I didn't put any adhesive behind the petals, I'm able to use my fingers and slightly curl up that top layer, giving the flowers more of a dimensional look. I love how this card is coming together. The vibrant flowers are so pretty, especially in the middle of winter. And I know it's been super cold throughout the country. It's even been really cold here in Western Washington. I think this morning it was 25 degrees. For a sentiment, I'll be adding the word Aloha, and this is also a die set from Jaded Blossom. It's their Aloha Word die. It includes the word and also an outline piece, but I'm only using the word. I cut it out from the silver holographic oil slick cardstock and also the black Russian cocktail shimmer cardstock. I'll layer the 2 pieces together so you'll just see a tiny bit of that black shimmery cardstock underneath the sentiment. Having that bit of black underneath the sentiment will really help it pop. And the sentiment is so sparkly with the holographic cardstock. I will pop up the sentiment using more foam dimension from scrapbook.com. This time I have the small foam squares in the 1mm thickness. I will need to cut those foam squares in half to fit behind the narrow areas of the sentiment. So once I have good coverage, I'll remove the release paper. Then I'll tuck in the sentiment on the right side so it's surrounded by flowers, leaves, and branches. The silver holographic paper is so pretty, and you only need to add a tiny bit on your card. So 1 sheet can last you a very long time. So there is my finished card. I love how this turned out. The vibrant colors just make me happy. I do have 1 more card to share. This time I'm only using 1 sheet from box 10, and I'll also use 1 sheet of cardstock from box 9. For the background of my card, I embossed it using a 3D embossing folder from Simon Hurley. It's called Plaster. I only embossed the top 2/3 section since at the bottom I'm adding this wood grain panel. And this is from a wood grain collection by Opaque. I'll adhere the card front onto a card base, putting barely art glue on the back, making sure to get it all around the outside edge and quite a bit in the center. With an embossed panel, you want to make sure to use plenty of adhesive. The image dies I'll be using are from Simon Hurley. It's called Mylar Balloons, and I thought this would be perfect to use with one of the specialty cardstocks. It's one of my favorites in box 10. It's called Aquamarine Glitter Gloss Cardstock. So it has lots of sparkle from glitter, but also has that glossy finish. For the balloon strings, I use the silver holographic oil slick cardstock, the same one I use for the Aloha Word. I decided all 3 of the balloons would feature this beautiful aquamarine color. So I have a star, a heart, and a circle balloon. For that background piece of the balloon, I'm using some silver pearlescent cardstock that was included in box 9. I'll put barely art glue on the back, adhere the balloon on that background piece, and since I am adhering 2 specialty pieces together, I'll place a large acrylic block on top for some added weight while the glue dries. Once that glue dries, those pieces aren't going anywhere. Now I'll flip over all 3 of the balloons, and I will pop them up using the large foam squares from scrapbook.com. The balloons will overlap slightly, so I'm only putting foam dimension more in the center of the balloons. That way those outside edges won't end up with a double layer of foam. I was going to adhere the balloons first and then tuck in the balloon strings, but then I changed my mind and I thought it would work out better to first attach the balloon strings. That way I can get them lined up correctly. Of course, I didn't think about this until after putting glue on the back of one of the balloon strings. So now I'm trying to be very careful and adhere the string on the back of the star balloon, putting just a tiny bit of barely art glue at the bottom. I will grab my silicone mat again, that way I don't get adhesive all over my card. Since I am adhering the 2 specialty cardstocks together, the balloon string doesn't want to attach at first. So I'll grab some double-sided adhesive tape. This is the 1/8 inch width, and that'll help secure the balloon string in place. But I'll also use barely art glue. Now I'll do the same thing behind the other 2 balloons. Now I'll adhere this string on the final balloon. Then I'll remove the release paper from the foam and also from the clear double-sided adhesive tape. And for a little extra reinforcement, I'll also add a small foam square at the very top of the string on the back side of the balloons. I'll start with the circle balloon, adhere it on the left side of the card. I'll add glue on the balloon string, not going all the way at the bottom since I will be trimming off the very end. Before adhering it down, I'll lay out the other 2 balloons, that way I can figure out placement. Now I'll adhere the first balloon on the left side, use a pair of scissors, and trim off the very bottom of the balloon string. The star will go in the center and in front, so next I'll add the heart balloon on the right side, putting it lower than the circle balloon. And I'll trim off the balloon string at about the same level as the round balloon. Now I'll add the final star balloon, and I'll trim off the bottom of the balloon string before adhering it down. For a sentiment, I'll be adding Make a Wish. This is a hot foil sentiment from Simon Hurley's Birthday Bash release. I believe this set is simply called Birthday Sentiments. When I used this collection last year, I hot foiled a bunch of sentiments to have on hand if I need to make a quick birthday card. I did pop up the sentiment with some foam dimension. The die set also includes the tiny little strings to tie around the bottom of the balloons. And there are 3 different styles. I'll use a different style for each of the balloons. I'll add a tiny drop of Barely Art glue down first, then attach the balloon strings. I cut out several extra and I'm adding them around the balloons just for a little extra detail. Overall, this is a very simple card design, but it has lots of beautiful sparkle and shine from the lovely cardstock. And also from the hot foiled sentiment, since I did use some silver holographic glimmer foil. I put 2 of the smaller balloon strings in the upper corner and I'll put 3 around the sentiment. I have 1 extra string, but I decided to leave it off since I didn't want to put 2 of the same style next to each other. So there is my finished card. I love the beautiful aquamarine glittery shine. Now here's another look at the 2 cards I made using several cardstock and papers from Your Paper Insider's current subscription box number 10. Their boxes are filled with beautiful and unique paper and cardstock. If you're interested in subscribing or want to purchase one of their previous subscription boxes, I do have links in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.